born into this situation for a reason. I have this passion inside me for a reason. How can I use it to help others and be the person that younger me needed to see?
We would like to acknowledge that we are on stolen Yagara and Turrbal lands, and as settlers of colour, we reflect upon the damaging legacy of colonisation. Always was, always will be.
My name is Aurora. I am Arrernte-Afro-Carribean, born and raised in so-called Australia. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I do spoken word poetry, playwriting, singing, songwriting, and performing. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
And which parts of so-called Australia were you raised in?
I was raised in Meanjin.
Yeah.
So my nana came here from like outback Victoria in, I think, the 60s.
Right.
Late 60s or early 70s. And then my mum, all my aunties, uncles grew up here. And it's kind of been home kind of for my whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I somehow got like a kind of far north Queensland sort of vibe. I don't know if
Really?
it's like the circles you hang out in or, but.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you spent much time up there?
I did last year. I saw some of my family up there, spent some time with my sister Hannibal and her family there.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Yeah, I really loved it. But that's interesting. I guess my influences have not been like outside of my family.
Yeah.
Or my family influences have not been Meanjin, you know?
Yeah, okay.
My dad's from the UK. Grandparents are from Jamaica. My mum lived over there for quite a while. And I guess I had like a very worldly experience. Also, my family from Bantua, Alice Springs. So knowing that this isn't my country, I'm just a visitor here, is also a big part of like, and then also being like a brown girl in white suburban Brisbane. It's like so dislocated.
And what was that experience like growing up in amongst that?
Oh, really confusing. From like young, I can remember just looking around and feeling out of place, feeling ugly, not fitting in, getting bullied, and just kind of not being understood. And then, yeah, I was fortunate. My primary school was very multicultural, so it was like a big mix of everyone. And same with high school. But outside of that kind of greeting the world, you're like, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even picking up on things in school of like, the social expectations, trying to fit in.
Yeah.
You know, going through the whole chemically straightening my hair every day.
Right.
Just trying my best to be as close to whiteness as possible because that was what I was taught to do to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say taught, like broader cultural feedback, or is it more connected to like family or specific instruction? Like,
I think both.
Yeah.
There's like being, I think both, because also where we were was just us. I didn't have any cousins around. I didn't have extended family. So
Right.
that kind of feeling of belonging that you get from seeing yourself and your family was not there. So you mask. And then also my dad grew up in like England in the 60s, 60s,
Right.
70s, which
Yeah.
was like the most racist shit ever.
Right.
And he learned that you have to be 10 times as good as the white man and embody it. Like he was very much a character. And so from a young age, I saw him talking to like really ochre Aussie men in one accent and one way, and then to old Australian people with his proper English accent.
Right.
And then to black folk in patois.
Whoa.
So
Triple code switching.
yeah.
Whoa.
So I just learnt that you got to be different wherever you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was really modeled quite clearly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then same time, that message of strength in your blackness
Yeah.
and knowing who you are and where you come from. So just an onslaught of like mixed messaging
Yeah.
and confusion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Because Chris J was telling me in these conversations as well a bit about the sort of frontier multiculturalism in some of those periods in London, and how it's quite different to what we think of it as today, and then take that onto what I imagine was Pauline Hanson era Southeast Queensland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I relate to that sort of the family aspect as well. Like I did have a bunch of relatives that were in Sydney, but we grew up in Western Sydney where we could afford to live, and the rest of the family were sort of in the eastern part. So it was like, one and a half hour drive, like a weekend thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the suburbs of Western Sydney at the time, it was, not so culturally diverse. So there is some of that weight of, performing whiteness, but having it in three, having it modeled, the code switching in three different modes there must have been a very complex thing to kind of work out. Was it also, when we talk about like Western beauty privilege and representation, Western beauty standards and representation, were they kind of strange things to come to grapple with as well, amongst that? Like you talk about straightening your hair.
Yeah, that was a whole journey. And it came, I think it came around 2016 when Instagram started to pop off a bit more, and you could follow pages you wanted to. I remember first seeing like this post of this girl with an afro, and I was like, whoa. And I clicked on it and then looked at their followers. Right. And I just followed all these like Afro beauty pages.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the start of it for me.
Right.
Was being able to see people that looked like me. And it took a while. Like I didn't wear my hair out till I was probably 17, which might not be crazy for people, but when you have to manage this every day and you're like tying it back and doing all sorts of things, I didn't feel comfortable to wear it until I was about 17, 18.
Right.
And
when you say wear it out, was it a process of like hiding, straightening, transforming it into something else up until that point?
Yeah,
right.
Because it being out was associated with messiness.
Right, yeah.
Being nappy.
Right.
And even though like my dad would always tell me to wear it out and like try and encourage my beauty, my natural beauty, it was too much to be seen, I think. And a big part of like being a teenager is wanting to be a part of the group.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did that for a long time until, about 16. And I was like, everyone's stupid anyway. Like, just kind of starting to step out of the collective consciousness I was attached to and being like, this is not serving me. And that started a huge journey of actually investigating and embracing my Blackness and remembering how strong of a family I come from and the bloodlines that I come from, and that I need to honor that.
When you're introducing yourself, you were describing yourself as a Arrernte-Afro-Carribean woman. How do you, I guess you were touching on the journeys of identity there. Like, how do you relate to all those intersections of identity?
They've always been quite evenly spread in my experience. Even my white side, like my nana holds pretty strong our Irish, Scottish ancestry. Yeah. And like even grow up listening and hearing Irish folklore. I think I went to just as many NAIDOCs as I did like the St. Patrick's Day marches. So, like big ups to my nan for holding that down. And with my, also like not living on country and being away from my Jamaican side, it was very much kept alive through story, through just memories and relating to that experience within the context of living in Brisbane, you know, until came the time where I could walk that path myself, go home, reconnect with family and strengthen my identity on my journey. Right.
Yeah, I imagine that would leave you in a very, like, talk about these marginalized communities and these sort of minorities, let's say, quote unquote, and then you're also connected to these white sides and you're in the NAIDOC and St. Pat's. Like, does that make you feel like even more isolated than the sort of marginalized side because you're in both, or?
Yeah, totally. It's such a, my Blackness and the Blackness of my family and my siblings is so different. Like, we got connections to the desert. We got connections to islands halfway across the world, to the UK, and then back to Africa, and then also to like these white mob up there. It was such a unique experience, and I struggled with it a lot. And I also tried to just like fully identify as one and push away the other. Right. In that process of like, I think it's just when you can see how much violence has happened to your people, to your family, and then you just don't want to mess with it, you know? It's that process of decolonizing. Yeah. I think it started with like, and it's still there, like anger and rejection. But I got to acknowledge all the things that make up who I am, and also the like beauty that comes with having an elder like my nana in my life who has held space to remember the original teachings and culture of the white side, which is like pretty beautiful, I think. Yeah.
Decolonization seems like something that you're quite invested and interested in. What does that look like for you?
Whoa. It's looked so extreme.
Yeah.
It's like, the family that I grew up with has always been very anti-establishment, very sovereign in our mind state. Like the conversations at our dinner table were pretty intensely like political.
Right.
And, you know, conspiracy theories, like we went deep. We went too deep. And so that's the space I came from.
Yeah.
And then so when I kind of, in uni, when I was engaging in these conversations about decolonizing, I was like, I got to do that. And I got to remember who I am. I got to get back to the way of my ancestors. And that in like 2020 looked like a full rejection of society, of my ambitions, of my dreams, of like anything capitalist.
Right.
I fully just left the world in a way and went on this like months of intense spiritual journeying. And then I had to re-enter society because things were opening up again.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to the valley for some reason, like after spending months in kind of isolation and going to see family on country in Darwin.
Right.
And I felt like an alien. I was walking through the valley and I was like, what is this? Oh my God, why do people do this?
Like weekend nighttime valley?
Yeah.
Or, the peak of the valley. The peak of the valley, so to speak.
We can't dance.
Oh, right. That era.
Yeah, that era.
Wow.
So really weird. Everyone's feeling weird.
Yeah.
Like nothing's the same. Yeah, and trying to who am I in this world anymore? Like, how do I contribute to it? And there's also still this passion to tell stories. There is this passion to strive in my career. But there's also that deep yearning to go walkabout and find some land and build a house and have my plot and be in connection with nature. So yeah, and following on from that, it's just been finding my purpose here. I've been born into this situation for a reason. I have this passion inside me for a reason. How can I use it to help others and be the person that younger me needed to see?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And someday I'll have the land and the plot.
Yeah.
But maybe just not now.
Do you have any of those kind of connections with younger folk from your communities that you already see that like they can see something in you and that might inspire some different directions for them?
Yeah, I have. But recently I've been quite disconnected from the youth. Like my work hasn't been in a space of connecting with them. But I am will be starting to do facilitating poetry workshops in schools really soon, which I'm so excited for because what's going on with you guys? You know, I want to connect with them again. It's so fulfilling working with young people. And yeah.
Nice.
I think that's a great way to be of service.
Your your passion for storytelling and creating, I want to get a sense of like when did you feel like you became an artist, or was it more of a lifelong thing for you? Like what was the beginning?
Well, both my parents are musicians.
Right.
My mom's also a visual artist.
Okay.
Like as artist as you can get, like broke artist struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always been around, and it was always the path. There was never really any other kind of discipline in my house to be like, go to uni, get this degree, you got to be this thing.
Right.
It was like the encouragement was to dream, to explore our mind and understanding and experiment. So I think it was always the path. And I remember when I was like, maybe like 7, I saw Titanic. And I was like, oh my God, this is a job. You can live stories as a job. Because I remember I saw like the making of Titanic, because it was such a huge film, huge budget.
Right.
I knew how it was done.
Mm.
And I knew like, okay, Leonardo DiCaprio is an actor. Kate Winslet is an actor.
Okay, yeah.
And then they create this and they feel these feelings. And I remember I cried and I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
And from there, I just always was involved in like performing arts, whilst also dealing with like crippling anxiety and shyness. And then, also music being a part of my life, going to sleep on school nights, hearing like my dad's subwoofer going doof doof while he's like mixing a track.
Right.
Yeah. And
so it's not the kids turn it down, it's like, oh, Dad.
Turn that down. It's 9:30, I gotta get up at 6. So it's just always been the path.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest challenge for me was reconciling like my creative mind and my discipline, work ethic, and just the part that's needed to make this a sustainable, long career.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the first... So you've come from this space of being an artist is the norm. That's going to be basically an assumed career path, direction, dedication, devotion. How did it first play out? Was it dance, theatre?
Like as a child?
Or? Yeah.
I'd say dancing and singing. My dad wouldn't take me to the shops because I would do cartwheels and think I was like the Atomic Kittens or something. And just perform. Perform on the balcony to the people coming home from work.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just in me.
And something I found that's interesting when I've worked on music festivals and pulled dancers into sort of backstage artist interviews afterwards is this pattern of like so many like visual and physical performances, say ones especially that not necessarily using their voice so much, can be quite introverted. Like they're out on stage like doing this blah blah big thing, and then you turn off that stage moment and like even to interview them or ask them about the show, it's kind of there was this.
Totally.
Like, is that part of your journey?
Yeah, it's a real thing. And at every point I've had to, not so much now as I've practiced more and become more comfortable in front of people or on stage, but when I was younger, just crippling anxiety. And like I would perform and I would feel the burn in my chest.
Right.
And then like my breath go. And like you embarrass yourself so much, you fail a lot, and then you have to just humiliate yourself and keep going.
Right. Yes.
But there's something addictive about it. Because it's like growth. Like every time you break down, you have a choice. Do you continue or do you stop? And yeah, you got a point to prove.
Right.
Who to? I don't know.
And yeah, there's something addictive in those little steps of like, oh, I tried that and it scared me, but it kind of worked, or I got an applause or got some level of feedback. And yet, how is it different from cartwheels at the supermarket, essentially?
Just society, family, like
Right.
I think the freedom of children and their just natural desire to play and express.
Yeah.
It's so pure. And then you got like society's social influences, that tall poppy syndrome. And then like, oh, stop that. That's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be quiet now.
Right.
So every step tells you to shrink yourself.
Right. Is that an intersection of the Australian tall poppy syndrome plus the model migrant thing of like, oh, don't make ourselves too big?
I'd say so. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally. And I can reflect back on that, like my dad not wanting to take me to the supermarket because it's like, you know, we got to be the proper black people,
Yeah.
you know?
We know how to shop in a civilized way.
Yeah.
We have shops where we come from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bizarre. Yeah.
And then, so from music and dance, I mean, I can definitely relate to that as well because I came from being an introverted drummer, just like sitting at the back of the band, doing my thing, and then had like a 5-year kind of seasonal solo travel thing, and it's like, oh, lifestyle, just like living on the road, and then it's like, oh, I miss that music making thing, but I don't have like regular bandmates or instruments, and so like, what can I do? And I sort of got my first like iPod Touch and started playing with a looping app, and it's like, oh, this instrument, the voice, I can play with that. Like, Mum was a singer, sure, I never learnt, but could give that a whirl.
Yeah.
And total like baby steps, like inventing an alter ego, posting on SoundCloud in secret, wearing literal masks and costumes to like play a character and just like have all this visual noise to try and go, hey, I'm a performer. And then like years later being able to strip it away. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that kind of desire to perform, the addictiveness of it, like falling flat on your face plenty of times, but still just getting up
just doing it
and moving and finding your sort of space with the voice. Was poetry like a next step from there? So like dance, singing?
Yeah, writing.
Writing, yeah.
I started writing when I was like 7. I got my first Barbie journal. And I probably...
Talk about Western beauty standards.
Yeah, I know. This blonde, blue-eyed girl would come on. And then probably most of the contents was like... I like this boy. His name is, she's so mean. But when I was 16, I got like this beautiful journal from my auntie, and I made an effort to write every day. And during that time, like, it was needed to express myself, like what I was experiencing. And yeah, I just surprised myself with how I wrote, and I just happened to be writing poetry. And like maybe when I was probably like 19, I got an opportunity to speak. And I did drama at university, which had kind of crushed my dreams. Because
in what way?
It was like, it took the spirit out of performing for me because
Right.
all the contents of the teachings didn't relate to me.
Right.
And then
Is it because it was plays by dead white men?
yeah, totally. Yeah. And I also had this maybe like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like I'm not meant to be here. I'm not as smart as these people. I don't know this stuff.
Right.
And then after uni, I had an opportunity to just speak, and they're like, tell your story. What do you want to say? And having this whole experience where I have to silence myself, hide myself, and then somebody's like, say your story. It was a huge moment for me that like opened up my voice. And yeah, I performed this poem, and then people were like, do another one. Keep doing poetry. And so it just kind of happened like that.
Right.
And it was also like showed me that this is of value. Yeah.
And what were those kind of spaces like? Was it like a slam poetry kind of night, or?
The first one was like something called at Le Bois. There was like it was kind of like an exploration of intersectional feminism and having a conversation of like, what is feminism now? And yeah, also just like different events. I'm not really sure. A lot of different random stuff and random places.
Yeah. But it sort of kept calling you back with enough momentum that you kept at it and perhaps assumed that as part of your identity as an artist at the time?
Yeah. Yeah, which was so encouraging.
Right.
Because I didn't have to pretend anymore. Right. And I felt most comfortable and valued when I was being true now.
Right.
And that's like the power of stepping into who you are.
Was it still a white-dominated space theatre at the time?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if at that point it was a performance. It had almost like, I just didn't know who I was.
Okay.
Yeah. I really didn't know who I was anymore.
Right.
And I think moving out of home, like a breakdown of the structure that holds your identity and your roots kind of dissipated. And I just got lost in the world of whatever.
Yeah.
Craziness.
But do you think if you had found your voice like that, the period you described after uni and poetry, if you had your voice and had to go through that university system where you may not get a choice in what's performed anyway, do you have a sense of like how you might have approached it differently?
Yeah, a lot. I think I would have had a like. I observed a lot. Like even though maybe I didn't step out, I observed a lot, and I learnt. And because I was that at the time, like like let me give you an example. The first day of, or like second week back at uni, there was a group of people in my course singing this song where like pretty much every second word of it is the N word, and they're singing it, but like musical theatre harmonizing and like jazz hands kind of energy.
Like getting it ready for a performance, or just
they were just mucking around at the start of class kind of thing.
Okay.
And then one of them looks at me and is like sorry. So I'm just like, what? Did that just happen? Just observing that. And then like the stories people choose to tell, what people found funny, the humor, which was like racist, embedded in racism.
Mm.
Not everyone, but some people. And then like the conversations that were happening in an Indigenous knowledges unit I was doing, and just the level of ignorance, just absolutely not knowing anything and thinking that they know something and it being just totally wrong. And just interacting with a lot of people who have never been in spaces with brown folk before, never had to. And I learnt a lot from that experience. It was like a microcosm of the rest of Australia for me, because I could see in that just how much everybody was lied to, and also experiencing amnesia. Like Australia purposely forgot its history.
Yeah.
And we're happy to do so, whilst also continuing to perpetuate the violence. So, yeah, it gave me a lot of fuel to then do what I have done past that point.
Right. I think like from migrant background, settlers of color, it seems like the university is held quite strongly, and largely our communities don't find issues getting in or getting through the system. But I'm aware that the tertiary system and universities themselves struggle, or perhaps are set up in a way where it's a challenge for First Nations folks to go through that system. Having gone through the system, like, what's your perspective on like some of those situations? Are you the only Indigenous person in the room when this is being taught around you? Like an Indigenous studies class, was that?
I think I was one of like 3 maybe.
Okay.
But what was really deadly is the Indigenous unit they had at our uni, which like held us from orientation week to graduation. So good. Such a good space that you could like have these experiences, come back to the room and yarn about them.
Right.
And really strong lecturers and academics that like work in that space that you can always have access to and meet with.
Okay.
So yeah, it was like you go out and you just observe the craziness, and then you come back and you're like, that was weird. Like, this is what's going on. So like, yeah, it was ugly and really beautiful at the same time.
Right. Okay. And so you've got through uni, you've your creative journey has involved dance, music, and now writing and poetry. What was next for you in the creative journey?
I think I'm at that point now where it is bringing all these worlds together.
Yeah.
Right now I'm writing a show. I'm writing my one-woman show.
All right.
Yeah, that kind of tells my whole story and brings all these elements together: music, poetry, performance. Yeah, so I think it's happening now. And I think it couldn't have happened at any other point, even though I've always been dabbling and practicing these multiple forms. I think now is where I'm coming into a confidence in my art and in myself as a woman to share my story.
Right. And when you say one woman show, would it be literally one person on stage situation?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of having my band be a part of the show.
Yeah.
But also it could be anything at this point. Doing a creative development really soon and we'll see what comes out of it. I'm actually working with Aaliyah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Seems like the perfect person for the gig.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but story comes from me.
Yeah. Okay. So it was about a year ago where I believe you put out your debut single. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cancer Moon.
So I remember at the time seeing it, and it kind of, particularly with the video clip and the style and depth to the tune, it kind of at the time felt like it's come out of nowhere for a debut. It's like, whoa, where did this come from? But like having some of these conversations and knowing that it's like you've grown up on music and you've had kind of creative lifestyles modeled to you and been involved in creative communities. Clearly it didn't come from nowhere. Where did that come from?
Where did Cancer Moon come from? It came from a choice to embrace my depth. I think a lot of our experience in humanity is to block our feelings, is to not go deep, is to demonize that part of ourself that just wants to break down and cry. And I felt so much in my life that, like, I am a Cancer Moon. That's my sign.
Right.
So
same here.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
Virgo Sun, Cancer Moon.
Yeah, deeply emotional. And then you're trying to exist in this world and be normal, not be too crazy. And so you feel like unhinged a lot of the time. And I had to, I was being, what was being reflected back to me was that I was too much. But that was also my own programming from my childhood that, you're too much, you need to stop crying.
Yep. No cartwheels at the supermarket.
Yeah. But also dealing with very hectic, chaotic environment, and you are not allowed to feel or acknowledge the depth of what that experience is. And so it came at a point where I just had to be there for myself and acknowledge my own feelings. I'm out here in the world asking everyone, like, see me, feel me. But it's like, I had to be there for myself. I had to see that it's okay to go that deep. And I see you. I'm holding you here. A lot of inner child healing.
Yeah.
Of going to that place where I'm crying in my room again after something's gone on, and being like, it's okay. You're allowed to, holding her, you know? And yeah, I just had to share that story. And I think that's part of the space that I'm seeing the music that I'm making is holding, a space of like empowerment of the feminine, to acknowledge the wound, the deep feminine wound that goes back generations of our mothers and our grandmothers having to deal with a very patriotic, sexist environment, and healing that and expressing those experiences through song. Yeah.
And it could have been the video clip that was giving me, North Queensland tropical feels as well for you. Can you tell me about the creation of that and the setting and how it was made?
Yeah. It was my friend Erin. She has a really cool house. She's a designer. She's an interior designer and digital designer. And her lounge room is just best vibes. So I just really wanted to shoot in that place and also like incorporate the ocean and a gracefulness to it. I don't really know. There was just images that came to my head of like a couple distant from each other but very close.
Right.
And also nature has always been my therapist when one wasn't accessible to me. So it just felt right to show those two experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. We might have a little play of that tune right now. Silent style.
Kids move. These emotions like oceans, and I'm in so deep, but you can't swim. I'm calling out. All you asked for was consistency, but I'm bipolar like Melbourne. Wear the pack your jacket, 'cause I might get cold when choose fear over that which holds us together. I know it's crazy. Why would I choose something that drives you away from me? Talking like I ain't got no respect. You second guess, I feel your commitment still. I pull away 'cause I don't wanna hurt again. You pull away 'cause you don't feel no love for me. To look so desperate, wish I could tell him how much I love him, but I don't love myself. I don't love myself. I should love me more. Curse of the kids move. Like oceans, and I'm in so deep, but you can't swim. I'm calling out. In a world of mine, will see your heart is breaking, but it's clear you know my savior. I can't keep waiting. Like a phoenix from the ashes, that's fighting me still. But the cycles of this moon won't let these wounds heal. We pulled out the weeds left the roots in. Got love to give you now, but can't let any
What are you laughing at there?
We spent so long trying to figure out how do we credit Isaac.
And you settled on
Male performance.
that's the role, right? Yeah.
Oh man, we took days to come up with that one.
What's it like for you to reflect back on that?
Oh, I feel proud. I feel proud of her. Yeah, it took a long time to release that part of me.
Yeah.
So I'm just proud of her. And since then, it's been a beautiful journey. And I've been able to sing, which is what I've always just wanted to do.
Right.
Just sing and tell stories.
And how have you been approaching your singing practice and your voice? Have you been working on it?
Yeah. It's like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
I want it to be more like you have to cultivate it amongst the rest of your life. You really got to like set time for it. That's what I've realized. It's like any kind of practice. You got to be disciplined with it. But yeah, I've seen and heard how much my voice has changed over the last year just by singing more.
Right. When I saw you perform at Jungle Love Festival.
Oh my God. That's like what...
Tell me about that. Yeah, this is instant reaction.
Tell me, that was like... I think that was a really big moment. But it was also swallowed... When was that? September?
Could have been. Yeah.
August, September. It was like swallowed up just by like the hecticness of life.
Right.
I think end of last year was so insane.
Yeah. Not to mention the intensity of the Mudfest and all the logistics around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to get everyone there on time.
Right. So we try and like extract ourselves from the chaos of the city and we create this own little thing over here.
Yeah. And we had like one rehearsal, but I'm so glad I did it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like first kind of big stage show, and I think to an extent it captured a bit of like the heart we wanted. But yeah, it's one of those things when you remember like your first big performance and you're like, I don't want to remember that.
Yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah, just because like the growth that's happened since then, but also I can appreciate what it was at the time.
Right. And imagine a good friend of yours, is it Mel Reel?
Mel Ree.
Mel Ree?
Yeah.
Mel Ree. I get lost in the handle spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Mel Reel TV or Mel Ree TV?
Mel Ree TV.
Okay, right. I've
Shout
just
out.
been reading it wrong the whole time.
Oh no.
So there was a moment where she came up on stage and just bigged you up in the most, like, first of all, I was just like, who is this person? She just has so much energy.
Yeah.
This is great. Also like a multi-dimensional performer, multimodal performer. And just like what kind of role do the hype men, hype women, hype people in our lives play in like supporting the art?
Huge. Yeah. She came up from Sydney just to be there for like one night.
Wow.
And so great, so supportive. And she also like brings an energy that reminds me to play and to have fun and be silly and be a bad yell too. Yeah, I got some really beautiful core people like Mel, and then I got my Bala Rudy who plays with me sometimes.
Yeah.
And Ra, who are like my like grounding.
Yeah.
And they'll like we've done shows together, and it's like reminds me of the message and the energy we can give to people. And then my partner, Sachem, who is also just like a pioneer, and his like example and being able to watch his career over the last couple years and see how he moves and what he's done has been like hugely supportive. Yeah, and then my mom, she's a big fan.
Yeah.
If I ever show her a song, she loves it. She'll like make me record it with her, put it on her SoundCloud.
What?
And then like edit a little video with it. Yeah. I'll send you her SoundCloud. It's popping.
Right.
Yeah.
What kind of things is she making?
She just writes her songs. She just puts them up on SoundCloud.
Right. And is it
Yeah.
visual artist background, but multimodal again?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
She's like 70s punk era.
Yeah.
That was her like prime era. So
Right. Right.
yeah, love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like independent artist hustle, these key people that hype us up, support us, hold us like that. They kind of act as our would-be record label, management company managers, this sort of thing.
Totally.
This team of yours and yourself put together a fundraiser. It's still a
Yeah.
secret, right?
Yeah.
What was that process like? So I came to the event and there's a whole lot of warmth to feel.
I guess it came from like frustration. Like,
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Yeah.
But just financially, grants for music are few and far between.
Right.
And then you got to already have this much out, be this established. So it's a hustle. It's a big hustle. And I was like, I want some money so I can start recording.
Yeah.
And I also just want to perform and showcase my friends that are insanely talented, and just kind of show people what's to come and what is Soul Child energy. Yeah, and then Mel just so happened to be coming up. Rudy was in town. Rena is just like out of this world.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to hear them. And Rahman too, who released an EP last year as well. Super talented.
Right.
She flies under the radar, but her voice and her energy is so pure. Yeah, so it just all aligned. We got the venue. It just so happened to be a Wednesday night. We're like, okay, we're gonna plug the hell out of this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the turnout was crazy.
It was.
It was so good. Yeah.
Have you put on something like that before? Have you had that kind of response before?
No. So it was kind of the first confirmation of, okay, we are supported.
Yeah.
You can kind of gauge on social media, but it's also like algorithm stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the support was crazy. And I think it also showed there's a huge gap for R&B and soul
Right.
in Meanjin.
Yeah.
Huge. And we wanted to, just bring that forward.
Right. In your bio, you talk about sharing lessons learned along the way. Do you have any from that creation?
Any lessons?
Yeah.
From creating...
organizing that event and...
I think it would be trust the process and lean into your community. I think that would be the lesson, because everyone that showed up and everyone that supported putting on that show has also supported the music that's about to come out. And that's very special for me, because something that I didn't want to do, and also am actively like reminding myself, is that this isn't just for my ego. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want this to just be for me. I want this music to be an offering, because that's what it is as its essence. We sing as an offering, and coming from like my dad having like a gospel background and family on that side, growing up in the church, and that being the connection to music, it is, you're singing praise, you know. That's the power of the song. And so staying true to that.
Right. Is it also an element of like looking out for that young black girl who's looking out for people that look like her?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the little girl that was singing to people on the street that watched Beyonce and was like, yes, I want to do that, you know.
Right.
That just wanted to like perform. And yeah, it was beautiful to celebrate everyone that performed. It was POC.
Yeah.
Rena's PNG, Rudy is Torres Strait Islander, Aboriginal, Filipino, Roman, I believe, is Ethiopian descent. So like, it's celebrating Blackness as well, and the stories we tell.
How common or uncommon are these spaces that you find in Meanjin?
I think probably the first time I encountered a space like that would be VOC
Yeah.
with Anissa.
Yeah.
And like, that blew my mind when POC was popping off. I was like, what the heck? Where have y'all been this whole time? It was a beautiful celebration, like monthly.
Right.
And
Voices of Colour is not so active at the moment, is that right?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so. But what they paved the way for, I see, is agency for us to create more.
Yeah.
And to take up more space. And then I've been to I've been to other shows that other mob have put on that have been really beautiful. But I think everyone's got their own flavor. Everyone's got their own container that they can hold. And I think that was just like our version of it. But there definitely needs to be more, and can be more.
There are clearly many, many challenges to facilitating, creating and publishing independent art. You mentioned that the fundraiser was clearly to target getting the pool of financial resources together. What happens after that point? Like, what are all the steps in between? Like, we'll just see a video pop up on YouTube. We'll see a song come up on SoundCloud. But that's the very end of a long chain. What are those steps in your experience?
I'm still learning them as I go, being guided with them, through them.
Yeah.
But like collaborating, creating the songs, recording the songs, mixing, mastering them, filming video shoots if you can, if you want. Then there's the whole like distribution and marketing side of it, which can be the downfall of a lot of independent artists, because it's like one of the biggest parts. You got to know how to market yourself, and how are you advertising it, sending it to radio stations, sending it to, I don't know, music video channels.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it picked up, get it reviewed. And
Cancer Moon ended up on a few Spotify playlists or a Spotify.
Yeah.
Like, was that from your part, or how does that happen?
I think that just happened through the I think that one just happened through the curator of that playlist seeing it.
Oh, right.
And that was also because heaps of people shared it.
Okay.
So, you know, knowing who your audience is and having that support that when you drop something, people are gonna share it around.
Right. And when you say sharing it, is that largely through like Insta stories of the clip?
Yeah, social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to be across what content you're putting up to. Having enough before, leading up, the day of release, and then like the after, a week or 2 weeks after. You have to plan all of that stuff. And yeah, just like, but I feel like independently, like sky's the limit. Anything can happen. But I think especially in Meanjin, the infrastructure of our music industry isn't as developed as, say, like Melbourne or Sydney. So I think it's a lot harder to get to a point of exposure or mainstream play recognition because there is not that kind of industry base that you can that is accessible. That's why everyone moves away.
Right.
You know, and I've seen people putting in the work for years and like have multiple bodies of work, but the time that it takes for them to pop off is a lot longer because of the kind of lack of stuff here.
Right.
But I think it's really important to build. You know, we need those people that are going to stay and build up the scene. Yeah, but it's a long process. It's a long, long process. But it's also very exciting. And what I found recently is like disconnecting from social media, because you can be in a creation phase which requires like solitude and focus time.
Yeah.
And then you see what everybody else is doing, and then you feel like you have to keep up content to, but it's like, what is the worth of that content, you know? So that's a lesson for me of late, is like, you can take your time away,
right,
and do the thing you need to do and then come back.
Right.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And then for you, is that a process of like taking that reflection time and bringing it back to the space? Because I think I remember seeing a post or a story from you of when you reach your breaking point, what do you find there? Like, like sort of unusually profound thoughts for an Insta story that caught me off guard. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Does that help you sort of like mitigate the crazy social world because you have that
time?
Yeah,
I think so. And that's also the way I interacted with it from the start. Social media was always kind of a way for me to like channel some message and bring it back.
Okay.
and hold that space for like depth and connection. And I think when you kind of get caught up in the fast-paced, fast food society and social media age that we're in, it takes away from that, because you need time away to process stuff and find out what needs to be said. Do I need to post this photo of me doing this random thing in this random place? Like, you know, really starting to think about and this is just for me, it doesn't have to be for everyone, but the integrity of what I'm putting out. Yeah,
it's funny. I think in the past, like when I sort of let go of my music touring hat for a while, I think I spent a good 18 months, 2 years, basically off, and like Insta was my main and only platform, and it was kind of endearing, but also like a little bit concerning. Some Sri Lankan friends would just chime in and go like, "Hey, are you okay?" Just like there's like a little welfare check, because it's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just like not on.
Oh,
not
right.
on
Yeah.
socials.
It's crazy. You don't reply in like 2 seconds and something's wrong.
Yeah.
It's wild. And that stuff that stuff gives me anxiety.
Right.
I don't know where that stems from. I got to inspect that, but there is something. I don't like being so accessible, and I feel like sometimes with social media and just the age that we're in, it's like there's this expectation that we have to be accessible all the time.
Yeah.
You know, emails used to be like, okay, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5.
Yeah.
You get emails on Sunday night, just telling you you just got to create some boundaries for yourself. And it's okay to tap out for a bit.
Yeah.
It's okay to take time to reply.
Mm.
We all live in our own lives.
Definitely. Yeah, I try to use all the kind of digital well-being screen time type tools on my phone to just like shut things off during certain hours, or put timers or all those things. And like, you know, sometimes it still doesn't work, but the attempt is there. And I often find myself like trying to move conversations away from the social land to another platform.
Yeah.
And recently there was a DJ. She's like, the only people that text message me are my mother-in-law and spam people. It's like, can we do at least do WhatsApp? It's like, okay. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. It's crazy now.
So Cancer Moon in the astrology sense is something that we share. How do you connect with astrology, which seems strangely white dominant space as well, considering, I guess, its origins?
How do I connect with it? I think like from young, my nana would read like the astrology section of the newspaper.
Okay. Yeah.
And like she always had angel cards and these esoteric books in her bookshelf. So there was always an access to that kind of knowledge. And I definitely can see throughout my journey where I've relied on it a lot, and I've invested maybe too much of my reality into what it says. But I think there's good parts to take from it.
Yeah.
And it's helped me understand more about myself, and I think that's useful. But I don't check it every day anymore. I used to like really be looking at what the stars are saying about me.
Right. And is that with some of that new school approach through the apps where they're doing NASA calculations and those sorts of things? Like,
no, I just stand under the stars and I look up and I get a call. No, I'm kidding. Sometimes. But not to do with astrology.
Aurora, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. Really appreciate you coming in, having this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Oh.